Vermont has been called for Biden and Indiana
We're
for
live.
Trump.
We're live now.
That's good. Just reporting the results.
Thank you.
All right, it's 7:30, so I think I will go ahead and call this historic election night, November 3rd, 2020 Oxford City Council meeting to order. Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bracken,
Here.
Mr. Ellerby,
Here.
Mr. Prithridge,
Here.
Mr. Snavely,
Here.
Ms. Southard,
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. Okay, in regards to the agenda, we need to make a change. We're adding a resolution. So may I have a motion to amend the agenda by renumbering Resolution 3 to Resolution 4 and adding new resolution number 3 regarding the city's Wi-Fi project?
So moved.
Or second it.
All right,
Let Ed
moved
know.
by Councilor Southard, second by Vice Mayor Snavely. All right, now may I have a motion to approve the, oh wait, we need to do a roll call on the amended agenda. Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, now may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Snavely, second by Councilor Southard. All right, we will go on to public participation. We'll start tonight with public comments.
Take a vote on that.
Oh, excuse me, you are correct. We'll need the roll call to approve the agenda as amended.
As amended. Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, now we will move on to public participation. We'll start with public comments. Anyone wishing to address council about items not on the agenda or on the consent agenda, please state your name and address for the record. And if you're wanting to comment on the task force resolution, you might want to wait and hold your comments until we get to that resolution. So, Mrs. Green, do we have any public comments?
Yes, I see one raised hand. Ms. House, go ahead.
Mute myself. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just wanted to come and talk about the masks and the mask ordinances. So currently my daughter, she's in high school at Talawanda. We're up to 104 quarantines right now. So it's pretty awesome, not? So my daughter just made state and I've had to call her off sick because she's afraid of getting quarantined at school before she goes to the state meet. I'm also like seeing no masks. I mean, a lot of people not wearing masks in town. I work at Miami and I see it at Miami all the time. We're supposed to wear them inside and outside and people just are not wearing them like they're supposed to. I had an incident which was a little bit disturbing to me on Friday. Having a teenager, they just eat a lot. And I've been trying to just do big grocery shops, but having a teenager, that doesn't always work. So I needed to go into Kroger and I went during my lunch break because I thought, well, it'd be a little bit less nasty going in during my lunch break than going after work. Because it seems like if you go to Kroger in the morning, it's a lot better with compliance versus going after work. And it was like Frogger going through Kroger with people without wearing their masks. And I was in the checkout line and one of the staff just asked me to move over to another lane. She's just trying to help me out because it was really busy. And I just made a comment because I didn't feel comfortable. I just told her, I'd like to stay where I was because people weren't wearing masks. And that proceeded to be a guy with his nose out, pulling down his mask to his chin and yelling at me. And then another lady who wasn't wearing a mask yelling at me that Trump was her president, which has nothing to do with COVID and health features. But I am getting a little bit more concerned with the behaviors that I've been seeing. We have rates going up. And as far as I know, there's been no citations for people, and I don't see it getting better. So I would just like to know what we can do to get things better. I want a kid who wants to go to school, and I would like to be safe. I don't want to get sick. If I get sick, then I can't take care of my child. I'm high risk. And I know there's a lot of other people in town that are high risk too. So what can we guys do to get this better? Because volunteer isn't working.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Prithridge. Any items to be removed from the agenda tonight? For the consent agenda, seeing none? All right, we'll do a roll call to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
yes,
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to resolutions. Ms. Eaton, you may read the first resolution whenever you're ready.
A resolution approving the reopening of the designated outdoor refreshment area in the city of Oxford from November 27th, 2020 to January 22nd, 2021.
Motion to adopt,
so moved.
moved by Councilor Southard, second.
Second.
Second by Councilor Prithridge. All right, I will turn this over to staff. You're muted, Doug. You're on mute. You're on mute. Mute. Can't hear you. There we go.
Well, I'm sitting there trying to click it, so can you hear me now?
Okay.
I apologize for that. I was enjoying my own conversation. So as you know, council approved the application for a designated outdoor refreshment area, DORA, by adopting resolution number 7192 last June 2020. It allows the city manager to amend the dates and times of the DORA with the consent of city council. So I'm recommending tonight that city council approve the reopening of the DORA from November 27th to January 22nd, 2021, to provide a winter designated outdoor refreshment area for the benefit of our citizens, visitors, and our uptown businesses. This pretty much coincides with Miami University's schedule. Students will be taking finals after that time period, from what I understand, but they're to be taking those online. So we do recognize that we'll probably have some off-campus students that will still be here. So we'll be watching it closely. We would expect them to follow our rules. And, you know, if it gets out of hand, then we basically will shut it off for a day or two. But I think we all agree we've got to do what we can to help our restaurants and other businesses during this long, cold winter. Some of them are really facing some difficult times. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
All right, is there anyone from we can start with public comment. Anyone from the public who'd like to address this?
There is none. Thank
All
you.
right, council discussion. Vice Mayor Snavely?
So was there a survey done of uptown businesses?
I know we've gotten a lot of feedback from businesses on our earlier DORA, but individually, I don't think we did a survey of all the businesses. Unless, Jessica, why don't you take that one?
I actually had a meeting with many business owners, and this was a topic of discussion, and it's been well received by many property owners. And then we had an email correspondence with just DORA participants and they were all receptive to this time frame.
All of them?
I didn't get any negative feedback. Let me put it that way. No one responded negatively.
All right. Well, my comment is that I have gotten some negative comment and individual who has said he would not participate. Part of the problem, I think, is that we're starting it while students are really still in town. And the word around is that almost everybody who lives off campus is going to be sticking around because they don't want to spend all that time at home with mom and dad. They've already paid for their apartment. They want to stay here. And so they'll probably be here right up until right before Thanksgiving. So I think that, and then they'll probably be back after that. I don't know that this is a good idea. I don't know that in the winter, there's going to be that many people who want to walk around outside with a drink, unless they're students. I'm just very skeptical of it. And I know that I've had at least some store owners uptown who said they thought it was a dumb idea. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, Mr. Prithridge?
Well, I think that I tend to think a lot of students are going to go home for Thanksgiving and probably not return. They're really only back here for a few study days and then they have online exams. So it could be that some students are around. I just think we had these conversations before.
We lost you, David.
I think is probably the low.
David,
Can you not hear me? I'm muted.
Yeah, you're cutting out.
I think you were froze there for a minute.
Yeah.
We can
Okay.
speak now.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm in support of it. I don't really see the problem. And I think it will be low impact on Uptown one way or the other. And if it enhances the opportunities for people to go uptown and spend money, even if they're not comfortable going into a bar, then I think it's worth it.
Wasn't there some talk about the Art Center adding, being included in the DORA?
Yes, there was, Edna. And we cannot add them until we basically advertise the change. We can change the dates and the time, but if we increase the area, we have to go through the whole process again. We just couldn't do that during this period of time, but we can certainly get it in place by this summer.
Okay, since that was brought up, I thought that it would be nice to clarify that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Councilor Bracken?
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this. I can't see student turnout like this being any worse than any given Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but you do worry about community spread. But of course, hopefully those community members who are most vulnerable aren't coming out for these types of activities. And of course, this will pull people outside who might have been inside, which is a great thing if it works. But I would ask us that at least we try to honor more of the mask ordinance, right? To sort of honor our constituents like Sherry who spoke. This is outdoors, so it's a lot safer than going to Kroger or other businesses indoors. But if we could monitor that and keep up with that a little better, I think that would go a long way.
I've had a few comments from residents in support. If we have those warm days that we tend to have every so often in the winter, that they would be more inclined to go uptown for lunch or for dinner if it's depending on the light, and have an adult beverage and dinner in the park. So I'm in support. All right, Councilor Southern?
I'm also in support too, because anything that we can do to encourage the economy to be successful and to keep our businesses in business is to be welcomed. And if we have to adjust, if we have to make changes, fine, but at least we're trying. And I think that that's why we should move forward on this, and that's why I would support it.
All right, if there are no further comments, Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
No.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, that resolution is adopted. We'll move on to the second resolution. Ms. Eaton, you may read that whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the donation of $74,160 to the Family Resource Center, which shall be used to provide a pilot cold shelter and transitional housing program in the city of Oxford.
Motion to adopt.
Move adoption.
Adopted by Mr. Savory, second by Counselor Southard. And I will turn this over to Mrs. Green.
Good evening. So this is in response to some feedback during our CARES Act discussions about the goal of providing a cold shelter. And we realized pretty quickly that the CARES Act funds would be a difficult use because of the time frame. And so what I did is I went ahead and explored what we could do if we used our city general fund. And so this is a concept for a one-year pilot that has three components. It would be $27,360 toward a cold shelter. This is will be a long-term lease at a hotel of 6 rooms for 120 nights. And it can be used ideally during the coldest months. There is some flexibility, but that's what it's meant to be used for. And it's meant to be for, short-term stays. You need a night or two, it's really cold. And then we'll help you find other arrangements, or people may just want other arrangements. The second piece is for transitional housing, and that's $25,200. And this is 2 homes in town. One is a 4-bedroom home and one is a 6-bedroom home. And this is for a longer stay. This is for families or those with children who need a little bit longer to get on their feet or to find longer term housing. And so that would pay for housing for that. And the Family Resource Center, the Family Resource Center will sign the lease for these homes and manage these rentals. And so you might have a few families move through in a year, but they will be longer term stays. Going back up to the cold shelter, the Family Resource Center will also be our partner in renting these 6 rooms for 120 nights. Like, it's a long-term rental that they've contracted to do with the budget in. And then the third piece, and I think this is really important to make this program successful, is case management. People who are in need of cold shelter or transitional housing often need other resources or someone to help them find longer term housing. And so the Family Resource Center has asked for 0.6 FTE case management, which is about $21,600. So all combined, this one-year pilot is $74,160. So this would be for 1 year. I've asked the Family Resource Center to provide us a quarterly report of their usage and some basic demographics, and they've agreed to do that. And at the end of next year, City Council can decide if this is something that we can learn. They can see if it's something we want to proceed and do again, or if we want to adapt and change. But I imagine we'll learn a lot in 1 year. And I have asked the director of the Family Resource Center, Brad Hoblitzel, to be here. And if they're okay, he'd like to say a few words.
Okay, let's go to public comments and let Brad speak.
Okay, Brad, go ahead. You're still muted, Brad.
Okay, first of all, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for all your service to our city and our community. So at the Family Resource Center, we have seen, this is my second winter here, and we have known that a shelter in the winter is something that has been a need, as we've spent a lot of our agency dollars, agency resources, and putting up people in hotels at times, but then also not being able to do that because of financial strains and just on the agency. Knowing that most of Butler County, the shelters in Butler County and the cold shelters in Butler County are often full. We have a hard time with our Oxford residents getting them to a place in other parts of Butler County. And so the need for a cold shelter is an extreme need. So we have communicated and spoken with the management at the budget end, and they have been willing to work with us and kind of make this pilot work. We already actually kind of in good faith and just, we took some of our initial CARES Act funds this month to start this month, and we actually already have families in the budget in, a family in the budget in, and are talking with others as well currently, even as of November 2nd. So we think it's a big need. We're also excited about the idea of being able to do real case management and having some of these folks and some of our community members who are struggling be able to visit us, us coming down to see them, making appointments, trying to get them the resources that they need so that they can achieve levels of self-sustainability. As far as the long-term transitional houses go, we think this could be a great program for folks who are trying to find a long-term solution for housing and provide them an opportunity to be in a place and to be in a safe place and to work towards self-sustainability and finding their own housing. And we are excited, as Jessica mentioned before, very excited about the case management piece of this. So often with many of our clients, if we ship them, if we get them to a shelter somewhere, or it's hard to remain in contact, but when we know where they are and we can work with them, and we can really begin processing more and more things and more resources and more advocacy for them, we're excited to see where that can go. So we are excited to put this in place. And I'm thankful for just the forward thinking of folks at the city and the city council to even consider this pilot program. But at the Family Resource Center, our staff are ready to go and excited to see how we can serve the community in this way during this time, especially in the midst of a lot of the economic hardships that we're seeing throughout our community with many of our low-income residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address this resolution before council?
I don't see any. Thank you.
Okay, then we will go on to council discussion. All right. Mr. Prithridge.
Just really, I would like to commend, this is awesome. I think this is a better, I think it would have been wonderful to go straight forward and purchase something, but using the CARES Act funding, we just couldn't do it. Do you have an idea in 2021, if we want to continue the pilot, what some likely funding sources are so it doesn't just continue to be a general fund thing? Again, is this something else that CDBG money could be used for hypothetically? If we got future stimulus dollars with a new administration in 2021, can we? So yeah, how can we keep this going if it works? Thoughts on that? I'm sure you've put some thought to it.
Well, David, CDBG is always a source because it definitely fits the criteria. Of course, we've been dedicating that money to completing the handicapped accessibility ramps. I don't know. I mean, we could see that there's additional funding. I don't think any of us believe that we're going to be out of the woods after the first of the year. So there could be more money coming down from Congress, depending on the outcome of tonight. And quite frankly, I'd like to wait and see just how much gets utilized, and that will give us a better idea. It could be that these are not even sufficient funds to cover, let's say, a whole year. So this is new for us. And of course, any new program we add is going to impact the budget. We'll get to the appropriation for next year. It's a balanced budget. But when we're adding things, it's going to put it out of balance, which means eventually we're going to have to cut spending, either a new program or an existing program, or reduce our capital expenditures. So we'll have difficult choices ahead, but we'll have some options to help us decide.
Councilor Southard?
I think it's the arguments and the description that were given are very compelling, and I think it's an excellent project. I would like to see if there's a way that we could, as we did say with the use the Oxford Community Foundation as a means for citizens being able to contribute to make this continue if in the future we find that the city budget is too strapped to continue it. It would seem to me that this would be a wonderful project for the community foundation to have a fund that people could donate to so that this could be continue to be supported.
All right. Councilor Bracken.
Yeah, I think this is great, but I wanted to point out that how we sort of transition funds the way we did in terms of our business card program, our gift card program, and there was a lot more money originally dedicated and was sort of a 3-year plan. So while I totally respect that this sort of needs to be a pilot because we don't know if this is insufficient or excess and we'll need to adjust, I would hope that going forward, we would take into account at least the amount of time and money we had originally planned for this. And I hope this doesn't end after 1 year. That would be upsetting to me. Now, maybe it might not be feasible, but I think we need to do our best to make sure that whatever good can come out of this is sustainable going forward, at least several years into the future, especially because in general, this is needed, period, even outside of COVID. But the effects of COVID financially and on families, is going to be tough, and it's going to be happening for several years going down. So I hope we prepare for that, and I hope we work it in. But otherwise, this is fantastic, and I'm glad we're going this direction.
All right. Again, I think staff is commended to be coming up with the solution we came up, and I'll be unfortunately curious to see what data we gather. It's sad we have to do this, but I'm glad we're taking this pilot program. So if there are no further comments, Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Mr. Bracken,
Absolutely.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. That resolution is adopted. All right, we will move on to our third resolution. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year agreement with P&G Telecommunications Incorporated, doing business as PowerNet, to provide a 1 gig Spectrum Wi-Fi circuit and service maintenance for internet access in the targeted areas of the city's Wi-Fi project at a cost of $2,600 per month.
Motion to adopt.
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Snavely, second.
Seconded.
Councilor Southard. All right, I will turn this over to Assistant City Manager Green.
Hello again. This is for the public Wi-Fi project, and this is the ongoing annual cost that will come from the city general fund. And it's a little bit less than what we thought it was going to be, so that's good news. So it will be $2,600 a month, which is $31,200 per year. It is a 3-year contract, so the total for 3 years will be $93,600. And this is for the actual internet service. The other that we voted for last time was for the infrastructure to provide the Wi-Fi publicly. So this is the ongoing internet service through Spectrum, and it will be for the entire project, the public parks, the PVA, the Parkview Arms, and the Miami Mobile Home community. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution before council?
I don't see any, thank you.
All right, council discussion. Mr. Prithridge.
Jessica, do you think there will be in the future any opportunities to get business partnership in, for example, the Uptown provision of I know that Enjoy Oxford have been talking with business partners about this, whether it's through sponsorship. I mean, we paid for the infrastructure. I'd really love to have partners on this going forward. Do you think it's feasible?
I do. I don't know if it's feasible in the first year because everything's so chaotic, but there is something called a splash screen. So when you first get on the Wi-Fi on your phone or your computer, it could be set up to say, welcome to Oxford, shop at XYZ, or here's a coupon to XYZ. And that could be a build placement. But that's something I'd like to explore in the future, or turn over the management of that to a partner. We could explore those options. That's how it was supposed to be set up originally, but COVID. So
All right. I think I saw Counselor Southard's hand and then Counselor Bracken.
Well, I just think this is excellent, and this is what we had spoken about. I hope that this can continue, and I hope that we can do this and maintain a balanced budget as we move forward.
All right. Counselor Bracken?
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. Between this, our sheltering and our business help, I'm really happy and proud of the city and the work they've done. But I wanted to ask, do we know what happens at the end of 3 years? Are we open to contracting with other service providers? Is that an option?
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that PowerNet, who we're using for the infrastructure, contracts with Spectrum. And I don't know if they currently contract with any other internet provider, but I could ask that question and get back to you. But for now, it's only Spectrum.
Yeah, it would be great if we had more options, obviously. But I think this is great going forward anyway. Thanks.
All right. Counselor Ellerby?
Just had a quick question for Jessica. First off, thank you for the work that you have already done on this, and I'm glad to see it moving forward. Just wondering if you had an update on the whole city Wi-Fi question that we had last meeting.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up in the discussion in the end of the meeting, but the short answer is I don't have enough to give you a clear proposal. So if you could give me a little bit more time, I have partial data, not full data. Sorry.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I think we all love this idea. So if there are no further questions, Ms. Eaton, you may call a roll.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes,
Mayor Smith.
Yes. And that resolution is adopted. Now we will move on to our fourth resolution for the evening. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
A resolution supporting collaboration between the Oxford Police Division and community partners to address social issues through both targeted recommendations for enhancing police response to social and behavioral health issues and more comprehensive planning for a safe, healthy, and equitable Oxford.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Prithridge, second.
seconded.
Second by Counselor Southard. All right, and I will turn this over to, I think, I don't know if we have anyone from staff, so I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Counselor Prithridge.
And I'll talk briefly, at least to introduce the resolution. I know some folks are here who had some part of the conversation. I know we have Councilor Ragu who's not here, and so I probably would entertain a motion to table it tonight, but wanted to at least get the conversation started. So this is my attempt to listen to diverse voices that we've heard across the community around issues of social welfare, policing, and social equity. If you've been tuning into council for the last 6 months, you know that national conversations have become local and people have debated about what the proper role of the police is in relation to things that are sometimes bigger than just policing. And we have these different dueling petitions that ultimately I see have a great deal of agreement. So the consensus that I hear is agreement that we have there's a great deal of support in our community for our police department and the good work it does, but recognition that some of the things that the police department faces are bigger than just the police department, but are societal problems. And so I think this was the root of a petition that or a proposal that was recommended to us by the police PCRRC and was voted on and recommended to us. And so basically, I believe that any board that makes a recommendation to city council deserves action by city council, whether we vote it up, vote it down, or amend it. Like I think that all boards that we appoint deserve a hearing. But we as city councilors have to find a way to reconcile those recommendations with other priorities that we have. So this is my attempt at this, which is recognizing a few things. One is that to find a way to support the police department, whose mission, if we read it, already really does emphasize community engagement and partnership with the community for things that are bigger than crime. It's about quality of life. We do have a PCRC, which everyone agrees we're so lucky to have, but its scope is limited to things related to policing. And so I believe that's why it recommended out to us that a task force be created that's bigger than just the PCRC. But I think there are two different things, and my resolution tries to do this. One, I think the Oxford Police Department exists. It will continue to be the primary point of contact for many people around issues of public order. And so we need to make sure that the Oxford Police Department is best prepared as a police department within the framework of policing to deal with some of those social and behavioral health issues. And so the first thing is to ask the PCRC, which deals with policing and has the relationship with the OPD, to explore those issues. How can we optimize our policing to deal with some of those things, and whether it's through education, training, partnership, or something like a police social worker. But I've also heard in the petition and the proposal from Black Lives Matter that there are issues that are bigger than policing, that we need to think about how we can respond to those. I sympathize with the spirit of a task force. And I appreciate, I'm a planner, I love a big picture conversation, but I also think that having a conversation that's separate from other things that we have going on, that doesn't have a defined scope and doesn't have a defined endpoint or deliverable, may be a lot of great conversation that may or may not lead to impact. In 2021, we're moving forward with a comprehensive plan that will be on a time frame. And so I think the best and most productive way to channel that conversation is within the framework of the comprehensive plan. And so I think that we can have a lot of what that movement calls for in terms of engagement beyond the police, fire, other groups. But I think it could lead to, for example, a chapter in our comprehensive plan that helps us think not just about the police, but thinking about how we best deal with social and behavioral issues. And so what I framed as, a chapter that could be called something like a safe, healthy, and equitable Oxford. So this is my way of, I think, reconciling what seemed like competing, but ultimately a lot of consensus. But also I think rather than have circuses everywhere of conversations that we have going on, climate and transportation and policing and this, why don't we pull them all under the big tent of the comprehensive plan so we can balance these goals with other ones? So that's the spirit of my resolution. And so that's what I've introduced tonight.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution?
Yes, Mr. Humphrey, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me well? Thank
Yes.
you. So hi, everyone. My name is Brandon Humphrey, and I live at 609 Ogden Court. I am speaking tonight as a representative of Black Lives Matter Oxford. So prior to this meeting, BLM Oxford delivered to City Council a letter responding to Mr. Prithrick's resolution. And for the benefit of everyone listening tonight, I'd like to read a modified version of that letter into the record. So the letter reads, first and foremost, we'd like to thank City Council for considering our task force proposal and for working to make it a reality. The spirit of this resolution reflects the calls for transformative change, coming together as a community and focusing on our collective core values of equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice. We're excited and encouraged by these steps and want to thank the members of council for all their hard work during what has already been a stressful and chaotic year. In addition to our excitement, however, we also have some concerns about the specifics of the resolution presented here tonight. These concerns are as follows. 1, the current delineation of work between Section 1 and Section 2 is not clear. So currently the resolution proposes that OPD and the PCRRC collaborate to better support OPD in their response to social and behavioral health problems in the community in Section 1. And then in Section 2 proposes a working group composed of departments, commissions, community groups, and diverse community members to engage in conversations and planning to achieve a safe, healthy, and equitable Oxford. As OPD and the PCRRC are represented in both of these proposed groups with similar goals but with disparate timelines, it's not clear how these two groups will work together. So in particular, to avoid the possibilities of redundancy, unnecessary time burden, and conflicting proposals should the two groups reach different conclusions, we suggest that the relationship between the groups outlined in sections 1 and 2 of the resolution be more clearly defined. 2, the lack of clarity regarding how the groups might work together is compounded by their conflicting timelines. Currently, OPD and PCRC recommendations are due in June, while the recommendations from the larger working group are due in September. This may lead to contradictory recommendations being presented at different times, or redundancy in the work being done by community members and commissions that are already stretched thin. 3, we're excited by the calls in the resolution for public engagement and the involvement of the entire community. In light of this goal, we would caution City Council from allowing any single organization, whether that be BLM Oxford, OPD, or any other group, to play an outsized role in the task force itself. As we've learned from Dr. Amber Franklin and others' discussion of their work on the PCRC, there are segments of the Oxford community who hold distrust towards the police. Intentions aside, this has meant that when organizations are seen as answering to or speaking on behalf of police forces, there are members of the Oxford community who become less willing to participate and to speak openly. Similarly, we understand that some members of the Oxford community hold distrust towards the national Black Lives Matter movement. Thus, it is crucial that neither BLM, OPD, nor the PCRC be the public representative of or have outsized influence in the working group. 4, much of the work in a movement towards a safe, healthy, and equitable community requires expertise in areas such as mental health, social work, and the perspectives of the most affected groups. In addition to the engagement of community members, departments, boards, and commissions, we ask that City Council move to include behavioral and mental health workers and representatives from groups like the NAACP, Miami University's Department of Family Science and Social Work, the Interfaith Center, Women Helping Women, and PFLAG as members of the task force. We believe that each of these groups have a stake in the work of the task force and would provide valuable insight for strategies for ensuring public safety and welfare. We feel that these suggestions will better equip the working groups to meet the goals laid out in the resolution and will help the working groups to meet their stated goals of working towards a safe, healthy, and equitable Oxford. We thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Black Lives Matter, Oxford, Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hand. Wait, I do. Hold on. Ms. Rosenberg, go ahead. There's a couple more. Ms. Rosenberg, go ahead.
My name is Shauna Rosenberg, and I live at 1036 Arrowhead Drive. I'm here tonight to support the idea of an independent task force that will be comprised of community stakeholders and experts to investigate how the city can best help those who are in crisis, whether because of mental illness, poverty, homelessness, or other social issues that affect individuals and families. Currently, many of these crises end up being responded to by the Oxford Police Department due to the traditional way that the dispatch of crisis calls ends up in the hands of police. I know personally that my life and the life of my family in our lived experience of being in Oxford during our own mental illness crises would have been better served by a different model. I am supportive of the work discussed in Councilor Prithridge's resolution in section 2, but I am concerned that the work might get buried in a comp plan chapter rather than be presented as direct recommendations to City Council to act. So basically, my position is that I would like to see an independent task force formed. I would like those results to go to City Council. I would be satisfied with whatever results came from a task force after community input, study, and basically with the input of several different groups in the community. So I just want to encourage City Council to make sure that this important work is done in the right way. So that is my statement for tonight, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Story. Ms. Story, go ahead.
Hi, Hi, my name is Hannah Story. I live at 626 Brill Drive, apartment 11 in Oxford, Ohio. I just wanted to offer my thoughts as a current Police Community Relations and Review Commission member, but speaking as an individual representing my own beliefs and values, especially as a clinically licensed social worker. I just wanted to raise my support for an independent task force with the voices of an OPD member, a PCRC member, member of PFLAG, Miami University's Family Studies and Social, Family Sciences and Social Work Department, Interfaith Center, Women Helping Women, all of the groups that were mentioned by Oxford, Black Lives Matter, and any other community voices that are identified by members of these task force, excuse me, I'm very tired. I just wanted to offer support, and I think that this is probably a better and more strategic way of identifying community needs. And I wanted to add that I think that the results from community input and the results of an independent task force is going to more closely reflect needs as well as options for future changes to be made. And I would like to offer that I hope that it is taken seriously by City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I do not see any others at this time.
Okay. So I will open it up for council discussion. Vice Mayor Snavely.
So I had to read this about 3 times to figure out what it's doing, and I'm not positive that I get it yet. But it sounds like you're throwing it back to the PCRRC and not appointing a task force per se, because we certainly don't have the composition of that task force. And the commission has made it pretty clear that that's not something that they want to do. So I guess my comment is, and I don't know that it needs to be folded into the comprehensive plan. So there's a lot of stuff in here that I think makes it problematic, certainly for me to support. And overall, I would rather, I will wait to see what the chief has to say about it, but I would rather give the chief an opportunity. Let's give him a chance to at least address this issue and maybe come up with, he's already made a suggestion, and see what that is, and maybe try the other 2 proposals from BLM and see the results of those, and then we would be more informed to move forward with a task force or something like that.
All right. Councillor Ellerby.
So first, I'd like to start off by saying I appreciate all the effort that everybody has put in over the course of this year, recognizing societal issues and presenting those as something that the city needs to work on so we all can move forward together. My interpretation of this resolution is that of we have now seen public talk about various issues surrounding first response and the desire to include social services and mental health programs within the first response unit. The city has received this and acknowledges that. I, as a counselor, have received this and acknowledged that. I believe that David Prithridge's resolution is the official statement by council saying that we as city councilors have recognized these desires and are acknowledging those, and that the city is now going to move forward on those issues. It may not be the best written, but in my view, this is a symbolic resolution stating to the public that we recognize these issues and that we're going to work on them. And when another social group presents their request to the city about independent review, in my mind, if you want to have an independent review, we are not stopping you. You can start doing that independent review and contact those individuals that you want in those various parties and just do the review and then inform council once you have received your findings. But this particular resolution is, again, a symbolic statement saying that we see some issues that have been presented to us, and now we are going to internalize those with the city and use our city resources to work on them. And you know, government moves at the speed of government, so it is going to take some time. And I already know that the chief has been under a whole lot of stuff, and I got to get you something for Christmas that's serious, because I know you've had a hell of a year. So basically, I'm in support of this resolution because I understand its symbolism. And I've talked about symbolic resolutions as well as ordinances that have been passed during this year. And this one I tend to agree with. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right. I saw Councilor Bracken's hand.
Yes, I agreed with most of the criticisms. I thought it was a bit confusing. I thought there were some timeline issues. I thought there was maybe some competing between the different groups. And overall, I was in support of the original recommendation from PCRC to us. So I would love to go forward just with that rather than sort of conflate the matter and have it go different directions. Though I do love the spirit of it, and I love that it tries to build it into the comprehensive plan. I almost think it's sort of backwards. While I like having the overarching plan, including a goal that includes issues about policing and mental health and social justice and all these things, that would be more well-informed and actionable if we had a task force that was set to give us recommendations on the directions we might go, right? Because what we're talking about is not something that necessarily goes forward. It's a task force that actually gives us ideas about how we could potentially improve. So I almost feel like the direction's backwards, that we should almost get that task force as suggested originally by PCRC, because otherwise we're sort of sending it back to them when we already have the recommendation that was perfectly good to me. But we take those recommendations the task force comes up with after we create it, and we use that to build in something into our comprehensive plan that we can move forward more concretely towards these goals. So I'm generally against this, even though I agree with the spirit and the attempt for a consensus and moving forward on these issues.
Let me get Councilor Southard, and then we'll get Chief Jones.
I would like to support what Councilor Ellerby has said. I thought that is well thought out, because I think one of the issues here is that it's not only a police issue, but also an emergency services, EMS issue. And so that's why, and that to me is why it should be part of, a larger perspective, because a larger study, because it's not just policing. It's rather a larger thing, dealing with other parts of our city administration and the services that are offered here. I think that I'm a little concerned about the deadlines as they are stated, because I think that this year has had so many shocks and so many unexpected things that requiring or saying no later than is a little bit might be. I mean, people will work as quickly as they can and study as quickly as they can. But I hope that the deadlines can be a little bit flexible should there be some more monkey wrenches coming into our lives, some more problems. Who knew that COVID would come our way? Who knew that some of the things that have happened? So I also support the spirit of the resolution. But I have a little concern about the some of the wording and some of the deadlines that are listed. And I thank Councilor Prithurch for bringing this forward. I think that was really good work. I appreciate that. And I also thank the city for working hard and making changes. But first, I think one of the questions should be, what are the changes locally that we might possibly need? And so that is another part of the question that maybe should be looked at.
All right, let me go to the chief and then we'll come back to Councilor Bracken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yeah, I just want to thank Councilor Prithridge for bringing this forward. I mean, I wasn't planning on speaking tonight for or against it. I was interested to hear the feedback. But I don't know. In my mind, I guess where some of you are confused on the section 1 versus section 2, it makes actually perfect sense in my mind, because at OPD, we don't, when this conversation started happening, we didn't wait for council to act, right? We started using one of our officers to improve our collaborations with social service agencies. And while I won't go into it here, today, him and I worked a lot on an elderly patient who has mental health issues. And quite frankly, we get the runaround from multiple different social service agencies, and it's very frustrating. And at times it seems like the police are the only ones trying to help this person. So in my mind, those things that I'm doing now perfectly fit in me talking to PCRC about, hey, do we have the right training? Those are conversations we've had. It perfectly fits in. This is what we're doing with one of our officers. Do you agree? Do you think this is the right thing? And what do you think about us expanding into this area just within the police department? So section 1 to me makes perfect sense. Like, what are those things that we need within the police department? And do we need anything within our budget to do that? So I understand it. Section 2, I do have, whether we call that a task force or whether we call it part of the comprehensive plan, I'm just, I need to learn more about comprehensive planning. I mean, I don't know that we've ever been a part of the comprehensive plan. I don't know that our agency has a strategic plan, which is something that I have heard talked about at different things different classes I've gone to. So I do think we need to look at that, but I know there's a work session coming up on comprehensive planning, so maybe I need to learn a little more about that. But it does make sense to me that that's a broader conversation. So I think we're having the same conversation that BLM wants us to have, whether we call it a task force or a work group that's part of a comprehensive plan and a larger big picture. I mean, I guess I don't know. While I wasn't necessarily supportive of this resolution because I don't like some of the things that are said in it, I see that it does make sense in a lot of ways. But if we want to fight over semantics and talk about, is it a task force or is it a work group? I guess I'll fight over that. I don't, every organization that was mentioned, Black Lives Matter, the Interfaith Center, a psychology department or family social work department at Miami, PFLAG, those have already come out and spoken in favor of Black Lives Matter proposal. I would like to include people who are actual professionals that we're already working with, like McCullough Hyde in their mental health work group, the Oxford Coalition for a Healthy Community, where I'm already having these conversations, because we get frustrated when we take someone who's in crisis and 11 minutes later, they're kicked out the door of the hospital and they become our problem again. So those are conversations we're having. You guys can keep debating it, but we're going to keep working on it. So I don't know. I feel like I need to learn more about comprehensive planning at the work session coming up. But I'm supportive of this, or really, just as I've spoken in the past, I want to work with these community members. It doesn't matter how we do it. Oh, and also, I guess, I'm sorry, before I give up the floor, I think City Manager Elliott will talk about the police survey that we want to do, a community-wide survey where we gather more voices, because quite frankly, we're hearing the exact same voices at City Council every time. And, you know, I would like to hear from business owners. I would like to hear from people who don't take the time to come to council. And we did a survey back in 2001 to gather that input about how people, whether they feel safe, how they feel the police department does. So I think it's a good idea. And I don't know if Doug, you want to expand on it now or talk about it later.
Well, I can speak briefly on it. I did send out to City Council some information. Basically, it's a service that Polco, POLCO, and the National Research Center, they do a police services survey. And as JJ said, the police division did a survey in 2001. It was done by a marketing class at Miami University, Middletown, and it was done in conjunction with the police division, as well as the former Citizens Police Advisory Board. So as I put in the email, I believe it's now time to complete a current survey of residents' opinions concerning the services that our police division provides. And as they put in their information, and I'll just quote this gives us some actionable feedback on public safety services for evidence-based decision-making, innovation, and building a better relationship between the police and the community. So I did provide City Council a copy of the survey instrument, and we can add some additional questions in there. They've moved from a one-time fee for like a survey to a subscription fee, which allows you to do this survey. And it also gives you the opportunity to do some polling on other issues, which interest me. So I'm planning to do that. And each year, if we continue to subscribe, we can do either a national police services survey or a community survey. And I think I mentioned to council before that when I was city manager of Hudson, we did utilize the National Research Center Community Survey, and they're now combined together as one entity. Or a third one is a business survey. And so I think it would be very, very timely for us because we want to get a comprehensive and accurate picture of residents' opinions related to our police division. And if you had a chance to look at the survey instrument, they asked, one particular question: have you had an interaction with our police, with a police officer? And they asked basically questions on how was that interaction and what type of issues might you have. So I think it would be very helpful. A lot of cities have utilized this instrument. It's a instrument that can be benchmarked against other communities, and we can see. So, I don't think we can have enough information on this issue. And, a lot of folks do not take the time or have the time to come to council and make a comment. But I think we want to hear from the entire community as well on this issue. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them. But I did provide City Council a copy of the instrument.
Right. Let me see if I had Councilor Bracken's hand up, and then we'll come back to Councilor Perthurch.
Yeah, it's been a little lost because we've had a couple speak for a little while since then. But I was going to say that the original proposal from PCRC sort of would answer some of the questions you brought up at the end of your statement, Edna. In fact, is there any real objection to the original PCRC recommendation? Is there any reason we can't go forward with that instead of what I would argue is sort of more confusing and competing and convoluted way to approach this? I also would like to say I'm definitely in favor of surveying the public, though I'd love if we had both council and PCRC and other members of the community a chance to add some of those additional questions and have input on that. But yeah, I would love to see us just go forward with the original recommendation PCRC made. I don't see any objection to it, and I think it accomplishes the same goals and might even be able to inform us going forward in terms of the comprehensive plan.
All right, Councilor Prithridge.
You know that Councilor Ragu, I think that if we're going to table, I think Councilor Ragu wanted to be part of the conversation, so we're going to table. We probably should soon. I just wanted to say that Councilor Snavely, I wanted to address his concerns, and I think Chief Jones did it for me. I was confused in the beginning, like, why doesn't this just go back to the PCRC? And the PCRC pointed out its charge, which is specifically related to things related to policing. Yet the Black Lives Matter proposal talks about racial discrimination, mental health, substance abuse, homelessness, interpersonal violence, international and immigrant experiences, other areas. It's about societal ills very broadly. And so the question, so to me, I think those things merit exploration. If in 2021, we're doing a comprehensive plan that is meant to be comprehensive, why would we have a task force that was separate from that process? In part, my objection in part is that an open-ended scope of conversation with no deliverable at the end other than conversations, I don't know whether it necessarily leads to recommendations we act on. If we know we're developing a comprehensive plan, then that at least is a framework. Again, as we've talked about, there are a million things going on. And if we have separate things that are conversations all over the place, I'd like to rationalize them under the big tent of the comprehensive plan. And that comes back to the deadlines. I think some of the things the chief's talking about can be acted on before the budget. So that's why, there's no sense in waiting all through 2021 if we can make a decision that can influence the 2022 budget. But I think making commitments to have this open-ended conversation, I think 6 months is, I think September would be optimistic to have that conversation. How we want to do it. I mean, my hope, I look forward to it. The work session where we can talk about what do we expect out of our comprehensive plan? What do we think the scope of it should be? Should it encompass things like this? I mean, we can have a separate task force, but I'd like to bring some of these services under one tent, and the comp plan, which we're doing anyway in 2021, to me seems like the logical place to do it. So that helps explain the resolution. Those things that are specific to policing are perfectly within the purview of the PCRC, and that's a great place to talk about them. Things that are bigger than policing, which I think the BLM proposal says, that's much bigger than policing, and that seems like me as a planner is comp plan stuff. So anyway, I guess I don't know. I could make a motion to table if we want to table, or does someone want to call the question? We could do that too. So, Glenn. Well, I'm sorry.
Councilor Ellerby, let me see your hand go up, and then we'll
call the question.
I object to the call for the question. So there would have to be a vote. If you want to move the question, you could do that, but I would rather wait for Councilor Ragu to be part of this conversation.
I concur with Bill.
How about the other councilors?
I would second Councilor Ellerby's calling the question.
Seems like we need to take a vote for the call to question.
Yes, we do. I have a call the question in a second. So, Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
I'm going to wait on Chantel and say no. So,
Mr. Snavely,
No.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
No.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. We are at a tie, so the resolution is not adopted.
I move to table.
Seconded.
All right, Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll on tabling the resolution?
Mr. Prithridge,
yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Resolution is tabled. All right. Good discussion, everybody. Good discussion. All right, we'll move on to ordinances. Ms. Eaton, you may read the first reading whenever you're ready.
Ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Oxford, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to City Manager Elliott to start with.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, as City Council recalls, we had a budget work session in October to review the city manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 2021. So the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 is an essential, sustainable, and balanced budget. Does not eliminate any programs or services which the city presently provides. It includes contracted pay adjustments for the 3 police unions and a pay adjustment for all other employees, excluding our 9 firefighter paramedic positions. We do have 1 vacancy there, 8 currently there, but there are 9 positions. We did not include an increase in the budget for the firefighters.
Doug, you're cutting out. We lost you for a minute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We did not include a pay increase for the firefighters because we expect that we're going to be negotiating a contract with them. In fact, tomorrow we will hear the results of the vote that the union took on the formation of a union. So we did not include a pay increase for them. We'll be negotiating a contract. Also, there are no major changes proposed in our employer-provided health insurance program for 2021. So in summary, in the general fund, the proposed operating expenditures are at $11,027,448. And that's up from our 2020 budget by $141,733, which is basically a 1.3% increase. The increase in operating expenditures from the 2021 to the 2020 budget, it's due primarily to overall increases, of course, in salaries, wages, and related costs, plus the replacement of police body cameras and data storage at $40,000. General fund revenues on the revenue side, excluding advances and transfers for fiscal year 2021, are estimated overall to decrease from the fiscal year 2020 budget by $721,222, or a 5% decrease. This is due to an estimated 5.3% decrease in income tax revenues. The income tax, as you know, provides the lion's share of our general fund revenues, about 71%, since the loss of the estate tax and the reduction in local government funding. And of course, the local property tax provides about 9.9% of our general fund revenues. Within the budget in the general fund, security of persons and property, which includes police, traffic control, and street lighting, it comprises 53.1% of our general fund operating expenditures and has been increased by $191,905, or 2.5%. Leisure time activities also increased by about 4%. So given the challenges and unique opportunities we face this year, I believe this is a fiscally responsible, sustainable, and balanced budget for 2021. And we're recommending that at the second meeting, you adopt this appropriation ordinance. So as usual, our plan is to give a first reading to the appropriation ordinance tonight, and then a second reading at our next meeting in November, which is November 17th. And if you have any questions, then Joe and I'd be glad to answer your questions.
All right. Mr. Newlands, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll just go over what I have in my staff report. Is some of the highlights. There's a 3% cost of living increase for non-contractual full-time employees. Contracted employees receive the respective increases. And again, no increases for full-time firefighter paramedics due to the fact they are unionizing, and one of them was received their contractual increases. There's a 17.5% increase in workers' compensation payments for the fire and EMS fund, and a 5.16% increase in workers' compensation payments for all other funds. There's a 5.3% decrease of income tax in the general fund, a 48.9% decrease in hotel tax receipts in the general fund, a 45.6% decrease in interest income. And there's a 5% increase in general liability rates compared to what we actually spent in 2020. And there's an approximate 1.3% increase in refuse rates for residential customers, which is 20 cents per month, and a 1.3% average increase for commercial customers. The $11,100 appropriation in refuse fund for curbside composting is in the budget this year again. Capital improvement fund spendings, $1,521,000. Capital equipment fund spending is $187,450. Oats Trail improvements fund spending $770, which is engineering cost, and $31,214 for personnel costs for maintenance of the trail. The water capital improvement fund spendings is $680,000. Water capital equipment spending is $86,000. Wastewater capital equipment improvement fund spendings $834,000. Wastewater capital equipment fund spendings $12,600. And these are the adjustments that was made to the budget after the October 15th work session. An additional $1,000 in both revenues and expenditures for the CDBG fund. And that's because we got the actual revenue that and expenditures that was allocated to the city after that meeting. And then there's an increase in the High Street pedestrian safety construction expenditures by $2,084,503, and Miami's contribution to that of $1,084,503. And these match Mike Dreisbach's estimates in our CIP, and the decrease of repayment of an advance to the general fund by $630,000 because there's only $1 million going to be federally funded. So that's the only money we'll have to advance. There's an additional appropriation to the legislative department for $36,000 to contractual services for Wi-Fi payments. An additional $21,000 was added to the Human Resource Communication Assistant City Manager Department budget for police educational reimbursements. And that was due to contractual commitments that we have with both unions. There's a decrease in appropriation of Finance Department of Auditor and Treasurer fees by $13,980, and an increase in the appropriation to the Oxford Property Tax Fund for Auditor and Treasurer fees of $13,980 in order to match revenue expenditures with the associated expenditures that contributed to that revenue. And that's part of my past when I was a cost accountant. You always match revenue with your expenses. And there's a decrease in the appropriation advance to High Street Pedestrian Fund of $630,000, an increase in the appropriations to advance the parking fund of $100,000 from the general fund, as well as an increase in appropriation repayment of advance to the general fund from the parking fund of that $100,000. And since the balance in the parking fund is going to be depleted this year, I just wanted to put that advance in there. So there's planned improvements to the parking garage. So the advance will just be there so that the contracts could be let for that prior to the revenue. So once the revenue comes in, that advance be repaid. And there's a decrease in the appropriation, the transfer to capital improvement fund by $43,020 in order to balance the general fund budget. And finally, there's a transfer of $196,416.90 from the small business loan fund to the general fund, as well as an increase in appropriation of $74,160 to Family Resource Center in the projected 2020 numbers in the budget. And due tonight, since we the decrease in the contract for the Wi-Fi services, I'll be decreasing the amount of the expenditure by $4,800. And Also, when I was going through trying to balance everything out, I was hoping that we'd have more money left in the swimming pool capital improvement fund to transfer to cover debt service from next year. That's not the case. So I'll have to increase the appropriation in the general fund of transfers by $34,926. And again, the netting of those two, I'll have to decrease the amount that we're transferring to the capital improvement fund in order to have a balanced budget. And I'll be glad to answer any questions over this.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council?
I don't see any hands. Thank you.
All right. Council questions or discussion? All right. See Mr. Pritchard.
So I guess this is a procedural question. I want to commend staff for all the work they did to put this together and balance the budget despite difficult times. And as a counselor, I appreciated having the opportunity to ask questions of the budget. I guess the question is, if as counselors, we would like substantive input on the budget, now is basically the time, right? We didn't really have an opportunity to propose ideas or to talk about the balance. So and I'm not saying I necessarily have any, but it's a procedural question. Is it the second reading when we would make a motion and see if there's a second and vote on? I mean, is that the opportunity now we have to have, if we wanted to change the priorities, produce a project, is the second reading the time where we'll have those conversations?
Well, it's a good question, David. If you wanted to amend this proposed appropriation ordinance, yeah, you could do it at this meeting or the next one. Keep in mind, if we add something, we'll need to take something out in order to keep a balanced budget.
So, I mean, seeing as we don't really have a sense of the priorities in the budget, is it kind of incumbent on us to if we had an added expense to look at a cut somewhere? I mean, we're kind of guessing if we're doing that, but if there were a priority that we had, is second reading the last? I mean, it's not an optimal way to do it, but if we wanted to do it, is that the chance to have that input?
Like I said, either at this meeting or the next meeting, it's now in your hands. We're focused on our existing services, and, we've added a few things. We added the expense of the internet, which is, it's not an insignificant expense. We've continued the composting program. Now that comes out of the solid waste fund, so it's supported by our user fees, but of course we don't charge a user fee for that. So yeah, I mean, if you have some suggestions, now is the time, and at the next meeting as well.
Mr. Newland?
Yeah, if somebody does have a suggestion, I'd appreciate ahead of time getting like the dollar figure so I can, at least in my head, figure out what we're going to do.
All right. If there are no further council questions or discussion, we will see that again in 2 weeks. And we will move on to our second first reading. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
Ordinance outlining budgeted transfers for the city of Oxford, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021.
All right. Mr. Newland?
Yes, I'm going to, unfortunately, I've been told by the state auditors that have to read each of the transfers. So I'll just do it one time. I'm not going to put you through that 2 meetings in a row. So the first one is the transfer from the general fund is a street fund of $447,665. And that's the annual general fund financial support, and that'll be done quarterly. The transfer from the general fund to the capital improvement fund, $187,450. That's our annual general fund financial support, and that'll be done quarterly. The transfer from the general fund to the capital improvement fund of $239,330. That's our annual general fund financial support, and that'll be done quarterly. The transfer from the general fund to the aquatic debt service fund of $269,791, and that's an annual general fund debt service payment that'll be made bi-monthly to match debt, or biannually to match debt service payment. Transfer from the general fund to special assistance fund of $50,000. That's a general fund financial support, and that'll be done in the first quarter. the transfer from the general fund for the fire EMS fund of $20,000. And that will be done quarterly. And that's the money that we put in the EMS fund to support their maintenance on the towers that blow the horns and all that. And that used to be in the general fund, but we moved it to the fire EMS fund. So we just match what the spending is estimated to be. That's what we transfer from the general fund. There's a transfer from the parking fund to the general fund of $33,302, and that's the annual parking fund payment for services for service department support, and that'll be done quarterly. The transfer from the parking fund to the street fund of $29,409, and that's the annual parking fund financial support for work performed, and that's quarterly. Transfer from the parking fund to the parking improvement fund of $10,000, and that's the annual parking fund financial support that'll be done in the first quarter. Transfer from the water fund to the general fund of $37,784, and that's the annual water fund financial support for mowing and municipal building expenses that'll be done quarterly. Transfer from the water fund to the water capital improvement fund of $86,000. That's an annual water fund financial support that'll be done in the first quarter. The transfer from the water fund to the water capital improvement fund of $459,348. That's the annual water fund financial support in the first quarter. Transfer from the wastewater fund to the general fund of $37,784. That's the annual wastewater fund's financial support for mowing and municipal building expenses. That's quarterly. Transfer from the wastewater fund to the wastewater capital improvement fund, $12,600, and that's the annual wastewater fund financial support. That'll be the first quarter. Wastewater fund to the wastewater capital improvement fund, $350,655. That's the annual wastewater fund financial support in the first quarter. Annual transfer of water capacity benefit Southwest Quadrant Fund to the wastewater capital improvement fund. That's $75,000, and that's will be done the first quarter. And that's the upsizing of the water main going to the city property over on 732. Transfer from the refuge fund to the general fund, $27,784, and that's the annual refuge fund financial support for municipal building expenses. That's quarterly. Transfer from South Point TIF District Fund to the South Point TIF Debt Service Fund of $270,161. That's the annual South Point TIF Fund debt service payment. That's biannual to match debt payment. Transfer from South Point TIF District 2 to South Point TIF Debt Service Fund of $6,864. That's the annual support for the debt service. That's biannual to match debt service payment. South Point TIF District 3 to South Point TIF Debt Service Fund of $10,301. Again, that's for debt service payments biannually to match debt service payment. South Point TIF District 4 to South Point TIF District Debt Service Fund of $10,276. That's for debt service payment biannually to match debt service payment. South Point TIF District 5 to South Point TIF Debt Service Fund of $10,233. That's for debt service payment biannually to match debt service payment. And finally, Oxford Area Trail Property Tax Fund, transfer to the Oxford Area Trail Capital Improvement Fund, $1,036,020. And that transfer will be biannually to match the receipt of our property taxes.
All right. Anyone from the public wishing to address this ordinance before council?
No, haven't seen.
Didn't think so. Any questions from council or discussion? All right. We will see this again, in 2 weeks. And we will move on to our first reading tonight. So Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
Ordinance outlining budgeted advances for the city of Oxford, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021.
All right, I will turn it back over to Mr. Newland again.
Okay, this is a lot less painful because there's not as many of them. We make an advance from the general fund to the parking meter fund for parking garage improvements. That's $100,000. The funds will be reimbursed from the parking meters fund operating revenue. That'll be done when the funds are received or at the end of the year. Advance from the general fund to the capital improvement fund of 100 for the 72-inch and 42-inch culvert repairs on US 27 North. The fund will be reimbursed from Ohio Public Works Fund Commission, $103,250. And that repayment will be made when the funds are received or at the end of the year. Advance from the general fund to Oxford Area Trail Fund. That's for the West Side Connector Phase 4 or design. Funds will be reimbursed from property taxes. That's $550,000. And there'll be the money will be returned once the funds are received. General fund to the High Street Pedestrian Safety Improvement Fund. That's for the High Street Safety Construction Project. That's $1 million. The funds will be reimbursed from ODOT, and that'll be made when they're received or at the end of the year. Advance from general fund to employee benefit fund to make whole the balance due to early plan from which is repaid from employees evenly throughout the year. The funds reimbursed from the employees' contributions for flexible spending. That's $5,000. That'll be returned to the general fund by the end of the year. We found we had to do this about 4 years ago because in January, everybody gets their flexible spending money. They have a tendency to put off medical appointments or whatnot until they receive that money. So there's a rush at the beginning of the year. And this is just to make that account even. The next one's advance from general fund to special assessments fund. That's for sidewalk, curb, and gutter repairs associated with repaving program. The funds will be reimbursed from special assessments. That's $150,000. And that'll be made when the funds are received or at the end of the year. General fund to OVI task force. And that's for federal funds received with the OVI task force for the OVI task force activities. And that'll be reimbursed from the Ohio Department of Public Safety, $225,000. And that's one received or at the end of the year. That's it.
All right. Anyone from the public wishing to address this ordinance before council?
There is not.
All right. Any council questions or discussion about these transfers? All right, we will see that again in 2 weeks. Ms. Eaton, you may read the fourth ordinance tonight whenever you're ready.
An ordinance to adopt fees and charges for the fiscal year 2021.
All right, and we're back to Mr. Newland.
Yes, the additions or changes or deletions in the ordinance are shown as follows. And additions are in bold, deletions are in striked out type, fees not changed are in normal type. Any questions regarding the fees should be directed to the representative department head. And again, I already told you about the increases, the slight increase we had in the refuse fund, and I'm the one who does that. So any other questions you can ask respective department head. Thank you.
Let me see if there is anyone from the public who wishes to address this ordinance before council.
There is not this evening.
All right. Any questions from council or discussion? I thought they were all pretty reasonable increases, nothing out of the ordinary, and some streamlining of things. So, all right. We'll see this again in 2 weeks. We'll move on to our fifth ordinance. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3538 supplemental budget ordinance number 8 to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2020.
All right, we'll go back to Mr. Newland.
Okay, the first item is to make an adjustment to the budget for transfers to the South Point TIF Debt Service Fund due to carryover balance of $9,218.30 and current year interest income of $4,821.74. And on the revenue side, will be decrease in revenue by $14,040.04. And that's the transfers from the TIF districts. TIF District 1, we're decreasing the transfer by $12,322.21. TIF District 2, $313.07. TIF District 4, $469.77. That was 3. TIF District 4 is $468.70. TIF District 5 is $566.29. And again, actually, this is going to get changed because we had some interest income, so this is going to go down by a couple $100, but I'll bring that to the next meeting. The next one's to make an adjustment to the budget for the transfer of the remaining balance to the general fund from the small business loan fund. And that's due to the fact that the program was changed to a grant program, and the grant program uses CARE funding. So the money we put in from the general fund is no longer needed in the small business loan fund. On the revenue size, that increases transfer to the general fund, $196,461.90. That's a transfer from the small business loan fund. And on the expense side, the small business loan fund, there's an increase in transfer to the general fund, $496,461.90. And again, that's going to be changed because there's interest income. It got posted yesterday, which was after I did the staff report. And the final item, I believe, the final item is to make an adjustment to the budget for the cold sheltering and transitional homes for 1 year in the general fund, providing funds to the Family Resource Center to run this program. And that's an increase on the expense side from the general fund of $74,160, and that's to provide the funds to the Family Resource Center. And this was talked about earlier in the resolution. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council?
There's not this evening.
All right. Council questions or discussion? All right. Being none, we'll see this again in 2 weeks. We'll move on to our 6th resolution. Ms. Eaton, you may read that whenever you're ready.
An ordinance establishing salaries and certain benefits for salaried and hourly full-time and part-time employees within the service of the City of Oxford, Ohio, paid from January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
All right, I'll turn that over to Assistant City Manager Green.
Good evening. So on this one, changes are marked in yellow and or a red strikeout. And in section 1, this deals with our full-time positions. What you're seeing here is mostly a realignment of positions. So getting rid of the separate economic development department and rolling that into the assistant city manager role, and then changing, adding a human resources manager. Then under section 2, which is full-time employees compensation, it's presenting a 3% cost of living adjustment. In section 3, this is our year-round part-time staff. You'll see a cost of living adjustment of 3%, increasing 1 part-time custodian, just creating a position from 0 to 1, and then increasing our intern or temporary part-time positions from 4 until 5. And that brings our total year-round part-time staff to 102. So it's 2 positions. Section 4 is our seasonal part-time positions. And this is a cost of living adjustment of 3%. And then in section 5, this is our definition of department heads, and you'll see that cancellation of the economic development director that's rolled into the assistant city manager position. And then in section 7, it's just from a director to the human resources department. Kim and I are working closely, more of a team approach. And then in attachment A, all of the pay bands represent a 3% cost of living adjustment. And then attachment B, there's currently no changes. This is for our fire department captains and firefighters while we wait for that collective bargaining process to occur. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council tonight?
I do not see any. Thank you.
All right. Council questions or discussion? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we will see that again in 2 weeks. We have no second readings tonight, so we can move on to announcements and communications, and I will start with City Manager Elliott.
Thank you. Just a couple of items tonight. I usually give you an update on COVID in our community here, so I do have some numbers to share with you. As I've mentioned several times before, each week on Monday, we have a leadership group meeting to discuss COVID-19 and the city's response. And then Thursday, we have another meeting with some of the same parties, but we also include Jennifer Baylor, the health commissioner. So with that, I can share with you that the Butler County Board of Health updated their information regarding COVID-19 reported cases in our zip code, which is of course 45056, and which of course includes not only the city of Oxford, but Oxford Township, portions of Milford Township and Riley Township as well. So the updated figure of COVID cases is 205, which represents 2.2% of all reported cases in Butler County as of October 24th. And this figure excludes Miami University student cumulative cases, which are at 2,388 as of October 24th, 2020, according to the Butler County Board of Health report, or 2,218 according to the Miami University dashboard as of October 28th, 2020. And I might point out, if you get a chance to look at the dashboard that Miami puts together, it's a very good dashboard, I feel. I also thank Miami for the hard work that they're putting forth on controlling COVID. If you look at the dashboard, they have included for the past several weeks information on the residence halls, because as we know, our community, when the students are here, they probably make up 70 to 80% of the population. And earlier on, the Miami University students were the biggest driver of the COVID cases. And if you look at the residence halls, they have a classification system, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the level 1 is having no zero positive tests in the last 7 days. And according to what I have here, it shows that there's only 2 residence halls that are at level 2, and that means at least 1 floor with 1 to 2 positions. So, you know, I congratulate Miami University and all the staff there, the president and his folks for doing a really good job. It is a real challenge for all of us. And I also thank the students, because, you know, I see lots of students in Kroger's and other places, and, you know, for the most part, they're complying. And of course, in any society, you have those with different opinions. Some may not feel it's necessary to wear that, which I don't understand. And of course, we don't know if we see someone without a mask, if they have a health condition that prevents them from wearing it. So, you know, to get back to the earlier comment that I believe Mrs. House made, we do follow up on the COVID concerns that we get. And typically we'll call the business owner or manager and discuss it with them and encourage them to do a better job, or to thank them for their current job and look for ways to improve, because it's, as we know, it's very, very important for everyone to wear their masks. So, you know, I still believe that messaging and education and encouragement is the way to go. You know, we're still learning with how to live with this disease. So anyway, back to the numbers. The total reported cases for Butler County, 9,298, and that does include Miami University students. And if you had a chance to watch the governor's Thursday news conference, we now have under his Ohio Public Health Advisory System, 43 counties, including Butler County, are at a level 3. So we do need to, all of us, do our job, stay the course, continue wearing masks, social distance, stay away from mass gatherings and other healthy practices. I can share with you that there have been 129 confirmed deaths in Butler County with an average age of 75.8, and the age range of deaths is from 30 to 101. I know Jason, Councilor Bracken, had asked how many deaths are in 45056, and it's 11. And of course, that once again goes beyond Oxford. I can share with you that at our Monday meeting and Thursday, there's still no student that has been hospitalized. Our hospital is still doing elective surgeries. We, as you know, because you approved the program, we have a COVID testing program for uninsured, and they did give 2 tests this past week. So we're happy, and they're very happy that we're providing that service and thanked us for that. And we do have some people that are utilizing it already. So, you know, I know we're all suffering from COVID fatigue, but as we approach the holiday season, we need to continue to be vigilant on this. One last thing that I want to share with you, and council's aware of this, eligible electric customers recently received an opt-out letter from Energy Harbor and the city. The mailing included frequently asked questions and the terms and conditions for this fixed price offer. This offer will go in place for the December billing. And as a reminder, eligible customers who receive this letter, you don't need to do anything to join. They can simply toss the letter or keep it for their file. So if you're already in the program, you don't need to do anything. Or if you want to be included in the program and you receive the letter, you don't need to do anything. However, if you do not wish to be included in the program, you do need to then opt out. And there is a small form at the bottom of the letter that you must send back in within the time period if you want to opt out. Our program, I believe, is a very good program. It's 100% green fixed price, and it's 4.71 cents per kilowatt hour. If you get on the PUCO apples to apples comparison, you have to plug in Duke Energy because you're a Duke Energy customer. And as we know, Duke provides the distribution services, but under the state's program, you can pick your own supplier. So you can get on the apples to apples and pick your own supplier, or you can stay within the city's electric aggregation program. The last time I checked, for a program similar to ours, we had the best price. And by a program similar to ours, I mean one without a termination fee penalty, one that was a 3-year contract, one that was 100% green energy. So, you know, looking at that, and they change that daily based on the different offers out there. So it's a very, very good program. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dreisbach, have you got anything tonight?
Nothing tonight. Thank you, though.
All right. Chief Jones, anything to add?
No, nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Newland, if you have any voice left, anything you'd like to add?
I've said enough. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Chief Deathridge, any comments tonight?
No, sir. Thanks.
All right. We will go to Assistant City Manager Green.
Good evening. Just a few updates. I wanted to tag on to Doug's update from Miami University. We did receive a disciplinary report that as of the November 2nd, 77 students had been found responsible for violations of the Code of Conduct related to COVID-19 safety measures. And those students received either a disciplinary probation or a suspension for the rest of the semester. There are 62 additional students who are awaiting their case outcomes. So as we learn more, we'll let you know. And the other is that we are exploring grants for the Elm Street building for what we're calling the Tech Hub, the Technology, Entrepreneurship, and Creativity Hub. And so we've applied for a pre-application to Jobs Ohio. And if we make it through the vetting process, we'll come to City Council and ask for your blessing to apply for a grant. And we're exploring some other possibilities with that. So stay tuned on that topic. And that's all I had this evening. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Perry, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Your Honor, but no, I don't.
All right. Ms. Eaton, anything you'd like to add tonight?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Law Director Kennard, any comments?
Last week, our last meeting we had, there was a discussion of whether or not there would be an extension by the legislature for virtual meetings. There has been no definitive word issued yet. The last update I received was this morning, which indicated that it's in the works. I should have something by the next meeting, and we can make the plans accordingly.
All right, thank you. We'll go around the horn, and tonight we will start with Councilor Ellerby.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right, Vice Mayor Snavely.
Well, the main thing I guess I want to say is I'm just exasperated that people are not following the mask ordinance. This is not rocket science, folks. If you look at, there is clear data. There was the University of Kansas study, and it showed dramatic difference when everybody wears their mask versus when they don't. And I mean, this is not a political issue. If anything, it's an IQ test. This is not rocket science. Wear your mask. That's it.
All right. Councilor Southard.
Thank you for that comment, Councilor Snavely. And I would like to say that we have, I have pointed out that the Senior Center has been offering rides to the polls and to the, for anybody, for any registered voter. And I received a report today from Steve Schnabel that in fact, 12 people took advantage of it. To go to Hamilton. 9 were permanent residents, community members, and 3 were Miami students. So 12 people went to Hamilton, and then today there was 1 person who went to a local poll using the senior citizens van. So it was not as many as we had hoped. However, every vote counts. And we are, we're glad to be able to offer this service. And hopefully it's something that will be done in future elections too. So I just want to report back that this project did go forward and that it was a good project because it enabled some people who were not able to get to the polls, either to vote early or to drop off their ballots or to go to the polls to vote today. But also it protected some citizens who might be elderly or have immunodeficiency issues, so that they really shouldn't be driving people to the polls because of COVID. And so this made it more safe for everybody. So I want to just thank the Senior Center for offering this service and for making it possible. That's all I have tonight.
Right. Councilor Bracken.
Wear your masks, and I'm going to leave it at that because I'd like to get on to seeing the fate of the world.
Councilor Prithridge.
So I just want to thank everyone who I talked to in preparation of my resolution. I really enjoyed talking to members of the PCRRC and talking to Chief Jones and trying to, so I appreciate the process of trying to find middle ground on issues where we have consensus. But other than that, thank you. And we'll see what happens tonight.
All right. I just have a couple of quick comments. Thanks to the Oxford Police and the Butler County Sheriff. I saw them making some passes by our polling places today, so everyone would feel safe. In regards to masks, I know everyone is tired As the governor said yesterday, those of us that are in public office are not allowed to get COVID fatigue. So I know we're all setting the best example we can. I need everyone to keep wearing their masks, keep washing their hands, and keep avoiding mass gatherings. And as we approach the holidays, think about what you're doing for the holidays. Have a plan. Know who's going to be there. Are you traveling? Surprise visits by your grandson might not be the best thing this year. So please, everybody, keep your foot on the floor in terms of doing what we need to do, and we'll get through this. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Prithridge. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll so we may be adjourned?
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, everybody.